back to my channel. I'm your host, That Lit Astro Chick, and as this is still a very early part of my YouTube endeavors, the slogan is most likely going to change. But for now, I'll say that this is a channel where we cover the natal charts of writers, artists, and any person or topic that I find interesting. There's one writer in particular that I've wanted to pay tribute to, and sidebar, this has been a really frustrating setup for me. Not the person that I'm talking about, but because I went through all this trouble to do a slideshow and a presentation, and I wasted about 3 hours of my time to realize that I don't quite have the software for it. So until I can get the money to pay for it, this is going to be the format that I'll have of my videos, where I'll just do a recording and you'll see a picture of the author that I'm talking about, that or their natal chart. So the beautiful author that I have in front of you is Yodassa Williams, and I wanted to do a natal chart on her, especially as a tribute to some unfortunate events that have just occurred. I met Yodassa at the Association of Writers and Poets Conference in Washington, D.C. in 2017. And I remember this morning clearly because I had gotten into an altercation at a hotel with a woman who claimed that she wasn't racist. And she just, without saying hi, reached out to touch my hair as though I was like an animal or a dog. And then afterwards, I met Yodassa at a meeting that was for the VONA applicants, potential applicants, and I was just so soothed by her presence. Yodassa, nicknamed Yoda, and that's what I'll call her for the rest of this video, was a very bright and colorful and creative person. She reminds me of what would it be like to meet a unicorn in real life. She was the personification of a rainbow. I admired her because she was so happy and so excited and so optimistic, very much like a stereotypical Leo in the highest regard. Now, full disclosure, I'm a Leo sun, but my chart is watered down depression cloud. But Yoda's light was everyone's life, and it touched everybody that she met. She was a frequent attendee at Burning Man, ultra creative. She won I believe it was the Kirkus Prize contest for her fantasy novel, The Goddess Twins. And she was on her way to the movie rights based on the adaptation of her novel, which would have been a huge success. And unfortunately, she has recently passed away. So I decided to do a a natal chart interpretation as a tribute to her. And a little birdie told me about her birthday. So without further ado, I give you my interpretation of Yoda's birth chart. Yodassa Williams was born on August 12th, 1985 in Cleveland, Ohio. Yoda is a Leo stellium with her Sun, Mercury, and Mars in Leo. That's why her great energy rubbed off on everybody so easily. And we'll get to the other aspects of her chart in a minute. With Yoda being born on the 12th, that reduces down to 3, ruled by Jupiter, giving her an abundance of this creative energy. And Leo and Sagittarius, because Jupiter represents Sagittarius in the zodiac, that's its home. These are also very complementary elements that work together. And what else was I going to say? Oh, whenever Yoda was in a room, you knew it, because she was so positively authentic and herself. She was a life path 7, that's Piscean energy, and it's ruled by Neptune. This made her very creative, musical, spiritual, and sensitive. This could, as well as other aspects of her chart, point to her interest in fantasy novels, as well as presenting illusions for her audiences to be immersed in. I've always admired fantasy novelists because I couldn't build a world like this, but this energy flowed through her because it was of an abundance. Because we don't have the birth time, I can't use the house placements or the moon for the chart, but the first thing that I want to start out with is the discussion about her nodes. If I was telling a client a story about the nodes so that they could understand it in the way that a 6th grader would, I would say that the nodes refer to where we have been, that's our south node, and our north node is where we should go. The south node refers to aspects, talents, or attributes that we might lean in on because they come as a second nature because they're so familiar to us. They are the energy signature of our past life. With Yoda's north node in Taurus, that meant that her south node was in Scorpio. However, her sun sign in Leo squares both of her nodes, which meant that she would have gone through a major transformation throughout her life. Now that I look at this, it's really sad that she passed away because I think she would have eventually been part of the mainstream with her movie rights secured. But other aspects of the chart, which I'll get into, could point to hindrances upon her quest. So her birth as a Leo sun means that she would have gone through a 180 during her entire life if she had not been taken from us so soon. Leo is dignified by the sun because it represents its natural house ruler. Leo rules the fifth house, which deals with creativity, romance, romantic love, recreations, investments, children, drama, youth, nobility, royalty, as well as creativity. Yoda was a very creative person, and she expressed this with her fashion as well as with her fantasy novel, The Goddess Twins. And she was proud of her accomplishments and emotionally expressive because her sun was conjunct with her Mercury in Leo. She expressed a great willpower and nobility because she was authentically herself. She was an artist who did what she wanted, but never in a slimy or unethical way. This Sun and Mercury conjunction also speaks to her love of friends as well as the love that she most likely had for her siblings. In addition, her Venus in Cancer would give her a love of home and of heritage. Venus could also speak to why she was so open with her emotions, why she wrote about her Caribbean background with her protagonist, the Goddess Twins, because she had a strong pride in her culture. This energy is heightened because her Venus and Mars are at the 11th degree, which is the master degree, which speaks to mastering identity and self reflection. Her Mars is also conjunct to her Sun and her Mercury in Leo, making her fearless, independent, and sociable. This aspect meant that she loved people, and she also had lots of admiration and could complete her work very quickly. I believe that the Goddess Twins took her about 3 years to write, submit, and publish, and that is incredibly admirable, especially from the academic background that I come from, where people take about 4 million years to publish one story. For Yodassa, the entire world was a stage, and she had many admirers who were willing to watch her and participate in her life because her Jupiter in Aquarius was in opposition to her Sun, meaning that she attracted a lot of friends, a lot of new experiences, a lot of fortune, a lot of good people who came into her life, and I'm hoping that she saw me as being one of those people. She was compassionate, sympathetic, and harmonious. She had a humanitarian streak to her, and she attracted lots of good luck and kept lots of friends in her life, especially because her Uranus sextiled with her Jupiter as well as trining with her Sun. This meant that she was somebody who was very much in touch with her own individuality, and because of that, she was very accepting of that in other people. Her Neptune trined with her North Node, which meant that she worked hard towards achieving her goals as a writer. And I forgot to mention her North Node was in Capricorn. I'll get to her Saturn in a minute. Yoda was always an open book, and she experienced family troubles, especially with her son squaring her Saturn in Scorpio. This would have made Yoda a very devoted person. And with her Venus trining her Saturn, she wanted to keep in touch with her family, but that might have posed difficulty because of her Mercury square Saturn. This also could be a negative impact in terms of her finances. Her Sun and Mercury square Saturn could also have made her very youthful and a big kid at heart. She most likely cared very much about the approval of her friends. And I would also add, I think that if Yodassa had still been with us on this plane, then she most likely would have gone on to write for young adults with this combination. I really do believe that. Like I said before, it's really sad to look back at her chart now because I feel like Yoda was on the precipice of greatness, but it got cut short. For starters, her North Node is conjunct with her Lilith in Taurus, so I think she may have craved stability and a steady life, but also may have felt ashamed of it. With her Lilith in opposition to Saturn, that stability or creative expression could have felt stifled. She would have had to have broken free from her family in order to fulfill her destiny. Another challenging aspect is that her South Node is conjunct to her Pluto in Scorpio. Scorpio South Nodes come from many lifetimes where they've experienced the fringes of society or experienced lots of trauma and abuse in their relationships with others, especially family, partners, etc. This lifetime, Yoda was supposed to experience independence and enjoying the fruits of her labor on her own. She was supposed to be a part of the mainstream society. But she would have needed to have broken free from her family and perhaps some generational curses. In addition, her Vesta, which is an asteroid that speaks to loves or causes that were devoted to, was conjunct to her South Node, which was also conjunct to her Saturn and her Pluto in the same sign as Scorpio. She may have felt like it was more natural to rely on the esoteric, the spiritual, the social fringes, and it would have made it more difficult to achieve that North Node. Her Uranus in Sagittarius, in opposition to her Chiron in Gemini, meant that she could have felt poorly about moving around a lot, especially because Uranus in Sagittarius would make her somebody who most likely has moved a couple times throughout her life. Chiron is colloquially referred to as the Who Hurt You asteroid, and her Chiron in Gemini could have meant that she may have felt some challenges around her communication or her intellect. I know that Yoda was a first generation American, so she could have felt insecure about her place in America or in about straddling her identity of those two cultures of the culture of where her family is from. I believe they are from Jamaica. Um, as well as being an American and wanting to experience all that America has to offer as opposed to doing things the family way. I definitely understand how this could have been very difficult for her because it's such a universal experience, especially for people that are part of a diaspora or for immigrants for any country. Her Mercury, which sextiled her Chiron, which is how I think she culminated with the process of the goddess twins. This is how I think she repaired that wounded warrior that she had because she went towards a different style of writing that would not have been very academic. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with anything being non academic. Most people like to read for fun. And I do believe that she really did heal that wound through her creative expression and her writing. And sidebar, The Goddess Twins was a really good book. It was actually really funny. I bought it when it was first released, and I had so much fun when I read it. Her Jupiter squares her Saturn, and that meant that she could have felt uncertain about the future and maybe struggled to let go of her past life and her family karma. In fact, I'd say that because, once again, she has that Saturn, Pluto, South Node, and Vesta all conjunct in Scorpio in the same sign, she may have struggled with letting go of her family as well as that desire to live on the fringes of society. Her Venus quincunx to Jupiter means that she could have lost money or maybe spent money on lavish things, especially for fashion and creative expression or for her friends. I've never been to Burning Man, but I hear that it's very expensive and maybe that could have cost her a lot of money. And with that Jupiter in Aquarius, that meant that she would have been on the quest for new experiences, especially with new friends and different groups of people. And her Venus trine Pluto, which meant that she was very outgoing and she was very well loved amongst everybody. Her Jupiter trine Chiron, so she healed those wounds through her friendships, her associations, as well as through her writing. This could have been that aspect that drew her to Burning Man as well. Mars trines Uranus would have meant that she would have been very athletic and intuitive, And her sun trining Uranus would have made her very quirky and different because there's no one else like her. But she drew others in because she was authentic to her own individuality and invited others to be themselves as well. Her Mercury trine Mars, which made her very gifted and on the precipice of a literary success. I'm certain that if she still would have been with us, she would have been a successful novelist. Lastly, let's discuss her quincunxes. Her Uranus quincunx her North Node. That meant that she would have needed to have made adjustments to get to that Taurus North Node, as well as being part of the standard. And her Venus quincunx Jupiter could have led her to fertility disorders, and I know that she suffered from endometriosis. I'm I'm really sad just looking at her chart because she's no longer with us, and as I said before, she was a rainbow personified. But I wanted to give her natal chart a read to give tribute to the wonderful spirit that she was. This concludes my natal chart reading on Yodassa Williams. Please like and share, and check out my next video.